الله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. It was a sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam that after the khutbah al-Eid, what he would do was he would go back and talk to the women just to give them a specific time. So that's why we do that. Because men have their obligations, women have their obligations, we all have our trial. And so, there's a verse in the Quran, Allah says, تِلْكَ أُمَّةٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ لَهَا مَا كَسَبَتْ وَلَكُمْ مَا كَسَبْتُمْ وَلَا تُسْأَلُونَ عَمَّا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. He said, these are nations that have passed. He's talking about the nations that have passed before us. Because all the women, there are many Muslim women. From Khadija to Aisha to Salama, the wives of the Prophet, the wives of the companions. There were women that were scholars. There were women that were even fought in battles. There are women that taught. There are women that teach now. There are women that teach little girls to be fulfilled, memorizing the Quran. And so Allah said, these are all nations, they have already passed. Laha ma kasabat. And they'll get for whatever they did. Walakum ma kasabatum. But you're going to get for what you do. Wala tus'aluna amma kanu ya'malun. But you won't be asked about what they did. See, every Muslim woman, you have to realize your worth as a believing woman. Because your value is in your obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How much you serve. Now, there's a lot of areas of service for Muslims. If you come to this masjid, the area of service are in two things. Maybe three things. But two things. One is the sisterhood amongst the sisters. Because number one, Allah says in Quran, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. Verily the believers are a single brotherhood. That's one thing. But a lot of sisters, and this is not directed at anybody in particular. But a lot of sisters, and this is one of the most unfortunate things for a Muslim woman, is to come into Islam and be Muslim, but you do not get the experience of sisterhood in Islam. That's a shame. That is a shame. You're missing something. You're missing something. And a lot of people just follow, they follow. Sometimes sisters come to the masjid, they follow whatever that culture is. If the culture is sisterhood, they're going to follow that. If the culture is women talking at each other and stuff, that's what it is. So that's an area where you serve. The Prophet used to emphasize the love of the Muslim for his other Muslim. That's the one area where sisters, you should step up for the sake of Allah, for each other. So you have strength. Because most of you have children. There's nothing, and your girls should see that. All the Muslim girls should grow in a certain way, certain environment. It's hard to raise your children by yourself. It's hard to, and listen, we see this happening. You're away from the masjid, your kids coming up, and then your girls 13, 14, 15, 16, baby time, boyfriend time. You can avoid all of that. That's not inevitable that your girls are going to be that way or your boys are going to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. But you have to take the right steps. You have to establish sisterhood in Islam. You have to stay close to the community. Stay active. Just because this is a small community, every community in the city started off as very small. Everybody started small. From Masjid Noor, who started in a one-bedroom apartment, to Salam that started in a trailer. Everybody starts small. Don't look at the size. But especially for convert Muslims, it's absolutely imperative that we do our own, build our own. And brothers can't do that without sisters. That's the way it's made. Allah made it that way. You know, sisters are more particular to detail, to activities going on. Brothers are just going to get some food, throw it together. You know, I would have rather to see some sisters on the Eid committee to plan Eid. Y'all guys would have done much better than what we do. But that's the need. The third need is the children, educating the children. We have a weekend school. It's a good school. We don't have a lot of money, but they learning the religion. I can attest they are learning that. Sister Naima is the principal of our school. I see all these kids running around, but we don't see you in the school. If you teach your child religion at a young age, that shapes their character for the rest of their life. That gives them their foundation. That gives them their moral constitution. So we need you need to do that for yourselves. But if I were to charge the sisters with anything, I would say those three things. One, you establish sisterhood amongst yourselves. But you have to be sincere. You have to be sincere. You know, women have your own tests. You have your own tests. Men have their own tests. You know, you're emotional in ways maybe men aren't. But it's a test. You have to work through that. You have to develop your spiritual muscle by striving. I mean, that's what I learned from my mother, Rahimahullah. Speaking of wheelchair, my mother died. She's dead. She died more than 10 years ago. But she was active in the deen. She used to have kidney dialysis 3 times a week. And we would pick her up from the dialysis and take her to the masjid. How many years was she on the planning committee for the Eids and things like that? That's how she died. A lot of sisters like that. I'm just saying that make a legacy of service as a Muslim woman. That's just the pinnacle. The best thing a Muslim woman can do is be a good servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a good wife to her husband, and someone who raised her children in the deen. You can't go past that. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't seek education. That's great. Seek higher education. That's great. Be professional. That all depends. Whether or not your deen suffers. But you'll never get past being a righteous servant. If you're a daughter to somebody, there's nothing you can do for you younger sisters. There's nothing you can do that's better than being obedient to your parents. You can't go past that. You won't realize the value of it. Just like, you know, most things in the deen, you don't really realize the value until after you do it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's subtle, but the way He works, He's like, okay, listen, do this. If we say, Allah, I want to get the benefit first, He's like, no. If I give you the benefit, you're not going to do it. So Allah says, do this, follow my path. And then when you follow the path, then He opens up your heart. And you see, wow, subhanAllah. You know, when you go to the sister, you have problems, and sister, you know what, I know what I said, but you know, may Allah forgive us and maybe make it better. Then He says, okay, now that you did that, I'm going to give you your reward. If you're teaching in this school, you know, or helping to establish a community, after you do the deed, then He shows you the reward. Sometimes He shows it to you through your children, or your family, or people around you, or people that you influence. A lot of you sisters are very young, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. You want to be when you're 40 or 50 or 60, that there's other sisters who are 40 says, you know, sister, you know, you really changed my life. You gave me this direction. You want your daughters to say, you know, I'm glad that you taught me this and taught me that. You didn't let me do it this way. Seriously, you have to keep your eye on the prize because you all have to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because you're women, you have particular challenges. We all have our challenges. But you can overcome those challenges if you trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So sisters, I hope to see you more active in the masjid, inshallah ta'ala. And y'all can talk to Sister Naima about enrolling your children. Because really, I don't see why children should not, I don't see why. It's just so important. I don't do it. Don't let your kids grow up and you have not taught them about their religion. Don't do that to them. It's like death. Why do that? Why expose your kids to that? You know? Why expose your daughters to this stuff? You have to teach them. If you teach them, then they will have a whole different constitution. Step by step. But you help each other. So that's my message. Inshallah, may Allah guide us. May He forgive us. May He accept our fast. May He accept our qiyam. May He accept our sadaqat. And may He make us brothers and sisters in Islam in the real sense. Any questions? Okay. Yes.